Welcome back, everyone. Right now, a new mystery surrounding One World Trade Center. For about a year, New Yorkers have reported hearing an eerie sound coming from the newly constructed building. They call it haunting, and it's got a lot of people talking. Rick Leventhal joins us now. So, Rick, you went down there. You did some investigative work. What did you learn?
Well, there's clearly a noise. It's not clear exactly where it's coming from. It's been dubbed the Wailing World Trade Center. If the wind is blowing hard enough from a particular direction, it can create a sound that some are calling eerie, haunting, even moaning. The whistling was first reported by the Tribeca citizen on the day after Thanksgiving. A man who lives a couple blocks from the almost completed One World Trade Tower wrote a local paper and said he first heard the sound during Hurricane Sandy last year and assumed it would be eliminated when the building's framework was finished and the windows installed. Well, then, last week in the middle of the night, the neighbor says the tower began whistling again with a slightly different two-toned cry, calling it unmistakable and very chilling. So here it is, and you can judge for yourself. Well, that was from last week. Now we have footage from last year shot by a woman named Jenna Pope. You'll see a police car with its lights on, but the noise you hear is not a police siren. Pretty cool, right? I mean,
well, it's very eerie.
It is.
And people are, of course, thinking about all the lives lost there, the more than 3,000 people. Is there any connection there? I mean, what are we supposed to make of that?
Well, we reached out to the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which owns and operates the tower, and a spokesman there tells me they're aware of the sound. The construction workers have heard it too, but there's no confirmation that the sound is coming from the tower itself. There are numerous buildings on the 16-acre site. You see some of them there. There's a transportation hub. Most of these buildings still under construction, and there's a lot of equipment down there, and there are still some open windows in some of the buildings, including One World Trade. Any of this could be helping to create a wind tunnel effect. The whistle is only heard on very windy days, and the spokesman suggests that as construction gets more complete, the whistling will likely fade away. But there is clearly a sound, and it's only heard when it's really windy, and it appears to be coming from One World Trade.
Wow, that is so eerie and haunting. Thank you so much for doing that report for us.
Sure.
Actually, it was Bob Franken with an eyewitness who said it appeared that that Boeing 757, the American Airlines jet, landed short of the Pentagon. Can you give us any better idea of how much of the plane actually impacted the building?
You know, it might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual site of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around, which would indicate that the entire plane crashed into the side of the Pentagon and then caused the side to collapse. Now, even though if you look at the pictures of the Pentagon, you see that the floors have all collapsed, that didn't happen immediately. It wasn't until almost about 45 minutes later that the structure was weakened.
Okay, tonight what I want to do is go over a few more things before I say goodnight and turn everything over to God. All throughout the years, everything I showed, I try to show solid proof to back it up because it sounds so wild, people. And Elvis is alive. A lot of people have a hard time even comprehending that. Myself, I don't understand why it's so hard. A man that was in a position as Elvis Presley, who had help from the United States government, I think they could pull a charade on the American people. Not trying to fool them for any reason to hurt them or any anything bad, but do this to help everybody. And then tell the world that Elvis died. And then they took him away. But only the image died. The man lived on, and I believe he was a federal agent fighting for the future of America. All these years, until he retired from the FBI. I think since then he's probably, well, he probably went back to really showing people that he's still around. But everything that I have shown, I have tried to show something to back up what I'm saying. You know, I'm not sitting here giving you a theory. I'm not making videos all these years giving you my ideas and beliefs. I'm sharing the truth with you. I'm going out and finding this stuff, and I'm finding a way to give it to you and say, hey, check this out. As I'm doing tonight, I'm doing my very best to talk about it and let you know about it. And that's what my work has been all this time. That first year was just Elvis. I wasn't aware that first year I was going to go on and do all this stuff. Now, in 2007, I told how the people showed up, and they told me I was going to do this. They asked me at that time if I wanted to do it. They gave me, I believe it was 3 days to decide. I met back with them. I said yes. I met with these people for, I don't remember the exact amount of days, but it was somewhere between 3 to 4 weeks. The main thing I remember about being with these people, they told me things that I would do. But mostly we just rode around in cars. Just a bunch of guys hanging out. It was fun, but a lot of times I don't remember it. I just remember bits and pieces of it. I remember I signed some kind of paper. So maybe that's still out there somewhere. I don't know. I believe it is. I always have the whole time since I've been able to remember. Maybe that could prove that everything I remember that took place in 2007 really happened. I really hope that something comes and can show that it was all real. Because ever since I started getting my memories back, I've had to believe that it was. You know, I remember this stuff as it's real. But I'm just like all of you, and I want to question it. Like, did I lose my mind? Am I delusional? This stuff is pretty wild, man. That's what I'm thinking. And you're like, you get scared, you don't get a creepy feeling at all, because it's just fascinating people. But there's a little bit of a scary feeling whenever you think, oh man, did I go crazy? This is just too wild. And you're really thinking.
Now, the government's most shocking cover-up.
What is that? What she's doing?
Life on Mars, extraterrestrial and human.
What you see here is an underground Martian subway. Is it possible they've already been there but haven't told us?
Investigators Bill Ryan and Kerry Cassidy uncover evidence of a top-secret Mars program that's been hidden for decades.
Phase 1 began early 1960s.
A space program based on ET technology.
They had an original seat from a UFO.
Men who claim they've been to Mars and back.
Why is it essential that I go? And he said, because the survival of the human race depends on it.
Eyewitness testimony.
And then we seen This beam shoot up through the clouds, up into space.
And dangerous confrontations. Everything you know is wrong. What you think is real is not. What you've been told are lies.
There's been a coup on planet Earth.
And it is our job to reveal it.
There's only one team whistleblowers can trust with the truth. Bill Ryan, Kerry Cassidy, Shadow Operations, The Mars Project.
The face on Mars. What forces could have worked to create such a phenomenon? Could the face be the product of natural erosion? The symmetry of the face, the detail of its features, argue that its existence is not simply a caprice of nature. 2 years after the Viking mission, 2 computer engineers under contract to NASA noticed the face in a journal and began to dig through the original Viking photographs.
I did not think that it was really there because it looked too perfect like a face. I went to the National Space Science Data Center, and after doing a search, I found the picture right there in front of me and labeled head, and it was the picture of the face in Cydonia. So there was no mistaking that NASA had identified this picture as resembling the human form of a face.
Using a sophisticated computer technique to analyze the photographs, DePietro and his partner Gregory Molinar put the face under minute scrutiny.
After doing our enhancing techniques, we were able to bring out details that were much greater than the raw pictures that we had. Within the eye cavity of the feature, there appeared to be what looks like an eyeball.
Geologist Michael Carr, the leader of the Viking orbiter photographic team, believes that the face is merely an accident of nature.
I have found other pictures that look like other natural or unnatural things. There's a particularly amusing one of Kermit the Frog. It just looks like Kermit the Frog. And I can't myself place any scientific value to that any more than I can the face on Mars. It's just one of those oddities of nature, just as you see clouds assume certain shapes, Spanish galleons and so forth.
Interestingly, DePietro and Molinar found a second photograph, taken at a different time, which seemed to verify that the face looked exactly the same, regardless of the light or the camera angle.
After searching the files, we found that there was a picture made 35 days later, and not only did it confirm that the object was still there, but there was more detail to be seen.
I was very impressed because they had gone to the trouble of finding 2 photographs of the face, not just one. And I remember particularly being impressed by the fact that they appeared to have found what looked like an eyeball. You can see a dark depression in the middle of the eye socket on both pictures, clearly visible. And I remember thinking, well, if one finds something that looks like a carved face and one finds what looks like pyramids, then someone should look into it further.
Another computer scientist working independently used a different technique of photographic enhancement based on shadow depth. He found a detail in his copy of the Viking photos that the others had missed. Teeth. In addition to finding details on the first face, DePietro and Molinar also found another face-like formation on Mars, thousands of miles away from the first face on the other side of the planet. Its measurements were extremely similar to the Cydonia face.
Well, I just think it's a natural oddity. It's probably a combination of geologic factors. Mars is such an exciting place. It has so many really intriguing science problems. It's frustrating to see people focusing on this one peculiar rock on the whole planet.
I believe that we have raised an issue and that the scientific community should be compelled to look at this thing and say it is or it is not. We're merely saying, take a look at it. It certainly warrants investigation.
Kerry Cassidy and I have worked for years to disclose information the government is hiding about extraterrestrial contact. Now, we've gotten our hands on NASA photos showing possible evidence of engineered structures on Mars. To unravel the significance of these photos, we've come to the Arizona desert to meet with space science expert Richard Hoagland.
This is probably the closest analog to Mars you're going to find anywhere on Earth. This thing was formed, we think, about 50,000 years ago by an object coming in through this incredible Arizona sky, buried itself in the ground 1,000 feet down.
Hoagland is a former NASA consultant who claims NASA is covering up what it knows about life on Mars. He's uncovered what he believes to be photographic evidence of ancient ruins on Mars, anomalous structures, including a photo that appears to show a giant face on the surface of the planet.
I've been looking at photographs taken by NASA, by the Soviets, for almost 30 years.
If anyone could tell us what we're looking at, it would be him.
So, Richard, what would explain these structures on Mars?
If you actually look at this, it looks like it's ruins being eroded out of these sand dunes. What you see here, I believe, is a buried transportation system.
Okay, you know this because you're in touch with people from inside NASA?
Of course. There are people leaking like crazy. There were people that were leaking in the beginning of the Apollo program. And we found little clues buried in that database, which now confirm what we have discovered. You cannot ignore the actual science. I mean, look here. This is a Mariner 9 picture.
Hoagland had brought some intriguing NASA photos of his own.
This is the infamous face on Mars that was photographed by Viking in 1976. But what the officials say is that it's all tricks of light and shadow. Nothing there. But it's not a trick of light and shadow. And we know that now because we have data after data after data with multiple angles, multiple lighting. It's not a trick. There's no doubt in my mind it's a statue. But because most people are authority-driven, they take the voice of their experts over their own eyes.
So your watchword is take a look for yourself. That's
Absolutely.
what you want to tell me. Take a look for yourself.
What else do you have there?
These are the pyramids located just to the west. This face on Mars. You can see there's this incredible precise geometry. There's no doubt this was a huge, mile-wide, 5-sided pyramid. These guys, who I think were our ancestors, built big.
Hoagland had an even more shocking story to tell. He said that back when he was a network television science consultant, he was inside a NASA control room when the first Mars space probe touched down.
When Viking landed in 1976, I'm standing there looking at a monitor with Carl Sagan. Carl is on my left, some NBC guys are on my right, and we're looking at this first color image come in, downlink, live from Mars, and it looks like Arizona.
I saw some of the pictures, and it's a clear resolution. Well, Mr. President, right now, all we're seeing is a landscape with maybe blue sky in the distance.
Then, a few hours later, the head guys sent technicians around to tweak the red knobs on all the monitors in the entire lab. Certain individuals have the political power to keep all of us in the dark about our heritage. They started in 1976 by changing the color of Mars so it would never really look like what it is, which is apparently a lot like Arizona.
An error was made. The Martian sky, the scientists now say, is pinkish.
This is the first color picture of the Viking 2 landing site, proving that this area of Mars is red, just as the Viking 1 site was.
So this corresponds to the real Mars. Look at the sky. It's not pink. It's baby blue.
So NASA had gone to great lengths to hide the fact that Mars' atmosphere is similar to our own, able to support life.
If someone's painting the sky...
They all had to be in on it.
And that would point to an even bigger Mars cover-up.
Is it possible they've already been there but haven't told us?
That's part of what we call the secret space program.
What's your personal view about that?
A, it exists. B, they know a hell of a lot more than we know through NASA. And C, there's cover-up after cover-up after cover-up, not only in the NASA area, but in every area.
Hoagland had shown us evidence of life on Mars and of NASA's attempts to suppress it.
He's been tracking this for how, 37 years?
He has watched the cover-up step by step with his own eyes. That's what's amazing.
He was there in the control center when the original images, he was there, he saw the color of the sky, and then they changed them a couple of hours later.
That's amazing.
But did this cover-up extend to secretly sending men to Mars?